When Robert found those tiny kittens hidden in the old barn, he felt a calm joy, the kind that only someone who really loves nature could understand. He had no clue that in just a few months this simple discovery would become something he never saw coming. Robert was a quiet man, his hands worn rough from cold weather and many years of tough work. He had gotten a big piece of land in southern Russia when someone in his family died, located at the base of mountain tops that stayed covered in snow for most of the year. Between his seasonal crops and neatly stacked wood for the brutal winters, he lived alone, but never felt lonely. His favorite spot was the front porch, where he would sit with a mug of strong black tea, staring out at the frosty air rising from the mountains and watching the wild creatures that sometimes wandered onto his land seeking warmth and shelter. On one bitter cold morning, Robert realized his leather work gloves were missing. He remembered last using them in the barn, so he walked there to look for them. He dug through old containers, pushed farming equipment around, and moved piles of dried grass until something under the straw caught his eye. There were his gloves, almost totally buried, but they weren't alone. Tucked behind the pile of hay, sleeping in the dry plant stuff, were tiny furry animals curled up so close together they looked like one single shape. These were kittens, gray-colored, small but sturdy, with heavy coats and eyes that were just barely open, staring at him with strangely sharp awareness. As Robert got closer, the kittens didn't run, but instead made deep, weird sounds for such baby animals. Their little bodies got tight, and their eyes showed no fear at all. They seemed to be watching him very carefully. Robert took a step back. This wasn't normal behavior at all. He had seen plenty of kittens around his farm through the years, usually born from the wild cats that wandered his fields, but these specific ones were clearly different. There was something wild in their look, and their fur was way thicker than any regular house cat he'd ever seen. Feeling interested, he stayed there for several minutes without moving, as if the cold air inside the barn might somehow help him figure out what he was seeing. While he watched, the little animals moved further into the hay for warmth and safety. Robert couldn't shake the feeling that something about these kittens was odd. What bothered him most was that there was no mother cat anywhere around. In all his years taking care of farm animals, he had never found such young kittens completely on their own. "Where did you little guys come from?" he whispered quietly to himself. At first, he thought maybe someone had put them there on purpose, thinking they might have a better shot at surviving the freezing cold. Then he wondered if they might be the babies of some wild cat left behind because of natural behavior or some emergency. The more he thought about it, the more he knew this wouldn't be an easy problem to fix. Robert decided to try the simplest way first. He put small chunks of fresh meat near them, hoping the smell would get them to come out, but nothing happened. The kittens either totally ignored the food or smelled it with serious doubt. Maybe they were just too young to eat real food, or perhaps they were just basically different from normal cats. There was something unsettling about how they acted, too. They didn't play around like regular kittens do. Their movements were purposeful and silent, as if everything around them was foreign and possibly dangerous. Trying to feed them by hand turned out to be totally impossible. Every try was met with growling noises or quick moves away from him. Robert knew he would need to take a more hands-on approach to help them. Putting on a pair of thick work gloves, the same kind he used when chopping wood or handling sharp wire fence, he bent down slowly, doing his best not to look threatening or scary. "Take it easy, little guys," he said softly. "I'm not going to harm you." One by one, slowly but firmly, he picked up the kittens and put them into an old wicker basket that he had covered with a soft blanket. They fussed with scratchy mewing noises and gave him sharp, mad looks, but in the end, none of them got injured and neither did he. Back inside his house, Robert cleared out a corner of the bathroom, which was the warmest and most peaceful room he had. He piled up cardboard boxes and made small hiding spots using towels and old pieces of fabric, a temporary home for creatures that still seemed doubtful of everything he did. He left the basket top partly open and stepped away, letting them come out whenever they felt safe and ready. He thought that trust should grow naturally, not be pushed on anyone. During the first few days, they hardly moved at all, choosing instead to stay bundled up together, almost totally hidden among the layers of soft material. But slowly, the sound of curious paws from Robert's other grown cats coming to check things out began to change the feeling in the house. The other animals who were used to Robert and relaxed with each other were the first ones to notice the new arrivals. They came up slowly and carefully, smelled the air around the bathroom, and watched the newcomers with careful interest. Robert's heart beat faster every time he saw signs of stress or worry in their eyes. He still had no idea of what these kittens might really be able to do. So far, they hadn't shown even the tiniest bit of friendliness or love. But to his total amazement, natural behavior began to take over the situation. The oldest cat in his house, a spotted female who had lived with Robert for many years, started coming to the bathroom with a kind of old calmness and wisdom. She began visiting the room often, sitting quietly in front of the basket, as if she was guarding some important secret. And then, in one of those incredible things that only nature truly gets, she started making milk for the orphaned kittens. "Well, would you look at that?" Robert said with amazement, watching the scene happen. "You've decided to become their mom, haven't you, old girl?" That was the moment when the real bond was made. The kittens pushed against her as if they had known her their whole lives. The other cats slowly began to put up with, and even welcome, the strange little newcomers, and the kittens who had once been so careful and scared started eating chunks of meat with growing hunger, letting Robert come closer without showing so much fear. Sometimes they would even watch him while he ate his own food, their round eyes full of curiosity, as if they were trying to learn and understand his kind as well. Quietly, Robert felt something warm grow inside his chest, a gentle kind of happiness that doesn't come from having power over something, but from accepting what you don't fully understand. After more than a month had passed, Robert decided it was the right time to get professional advice and help. He called George, the old veterinarian from the nearby village, and asked him to come and check out the kittens. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. "I have some strange little visitors here, George," Robert said on the phone. "I found them in the barn, and they're not like any cats I've ever seen." "What do you mean by different?" George asked, sounding curious. "Just come see them when you get a chance. I think you'll understand what I'm talking about." He wasn't sure how the kittens would act around someone new, but he hoped they trusted him enough to give it a try. But the plan got ruined by a sudden weather change. Spring was just starting to show up when an unexpected cold wave hit the area, putting white snow all over the fields again. The road to Robert's farm became too dangerous to drive on. George couldn't come visit. They had to wait until later. While waiting, Robert split his time between his normal farm jobs and quietly caring for the small group of cats that was living in his house. Even though he didn't know where they came from, or what kind of cats they really were, he didn't think of them as trouble anymore. They still wouldn't let him touch them or be loving, but they didn't run away from him anymore either. They weren't completely wild animals, but they weren't regular house cats either, and maybe that's what Robert found most interesting about them. As the days got busier with spring farm work, Robert kept putting off the vet visit. He still planned to do it, but one day turned into the next, and there was always a fence to fix, a machine to check, or a farm animal that needed help right away. At the same time, the kittens kept getting bigger and stronger. They began leaving the bathroom by themselves, walking through the house hallways, checking out every room, and pretty soon they found the world outside the house. Robert changed his daily routine, keeping the back door partly open during the day. The kittens, now brave and fast, decided when to go in and out. Even though he still put food in their bowls, they liked hunting their own food better. Small mice and rats around the farm started disappearing, and Robert sometimes found silent proof of their hunting hidden in yard corners. "You're getting pretty good at hunting, aren't you?" he'd say when he found what they had caught. Still, there was something confusing and complex about how they related to him. They never became cuddly cats who wanted to be petted. They didn't follow him around the farm or look for his attention and friendship. They put up with him being there but didn't seem to want or need it like normal cats do. Many times, Robert felt more like someone who was just watching their lives happen, rather than being an important part of those lives. But he knew that not every cat shows love in the same way. Some like to keep their space or stay quiet, and even so, they're still there, still keeping you company. These special little ones, even though they stayed distant and independent, filled the farm with a kind of living, mysterious feeling that he had never felt before. The barn became one of their favorite hangout spots, especially on cold nights. They would hide between the big hay bales or sneak into the darkest parts of the building, coming back to the house only when the sun came up. On busy days when people visited the farm or delivery trucks came, they would disappear completely, like they had vanished without leaving any sign. Robert learned to respect and understand that behavior. To help them feel more at home, he decided to make changes to the land around his property. He put big rocks throughout the fields and moved hollow tree stumps to important spots around the farm. Each structure gave them shelter, a hiding spot, or a good place to watch from. It was his way of telling them they belonged there, even if they chose to live just at the edges of his world. Many months had gone by since the day Robert first found those tiny kittens hiding in the hay. Now, full grown, they moved easily around the whole property, jumping over rocks and climbing the barn support beams with the natural grace of creatures that had always belonged to this land. But one late afternoon, a new emergency made Robert finally get professional help. One of his dairy goats had gotten sick, and he absolutely had to call George, the old village veterinarian. When George showed up, he quickly looked at the goat and told Robert what was wrong. "It's just a simple infection, Robert, nothing serious. A few days of antibiotic medicine and she'll be fine." Feeling better, Robert walked George toward the farm gate when the veterinarian gave him a curious look. "So, those kittens you told me about a while ago, are they still living around here somewhere?" George asked with interest. Robert gave a slightly embarrassed smile and pointed toward the barn. "If you want to see them, we should go now. They usually go in there around this time of day." "I'd love to finally meet these mysterious cats of yours," George said back. Together, they walked to the barn, but the moment George stepped inside the building, the animals disappeared like shadows moving in the dark. A second later, a surprised laugh broke the quiet. "Robert," George said, his eyes getting bright with excitement, "those aren't regular house cats. Do you know what you've been taking care of all this time?" Robert looked confused and worried. "What do you mean? What are they?" The veterinarian bent down near one of the corners where one of the cats was still visible, staying perfectly still and watching them. "Pallas's cats," he whispered, like the name itself was something special that deserved deep respect. "They're wild cats, extremely rare, native to the mountain areas around here, but it's almost impossible to see them up close in their natural home. And you You've raised a whole family of them without even knowing what they were." Robert stood completely quiet, letting the words slowly sink into his mind. Suddenly, everything made perfect sense. Their careful eyes, the growling sounds, their love for hunting, their refusal to accept human touch and love. "So they're not supposed to be living here with me?" he asked quietly. "Not as pets," George said for sure. "But what you've done here is truly amazing. They're healthy and strong. That alone is a small miracle considering how hard these cats are to take care of." "I had no idea," Robert said, shaking his head in amazement. "I just did what felt right." With help and advice from the veterinarian and support from a local wildlife conservation group, Robert started a completely new part in this unusual story. He built safe temporary living spaces, worked closely with biologists and field experts, and little by little helped get the cats ready for what he now understood was bound to happen: their return to the wild where they truly belonged. "It's going to be hard to let them go," Robert told George during one of their planning meetings. "I understand," George said back. "But you've given them something precious, a chance to survive and return to their natural home." Letting them go wasn't easy at all, but Robert came to understand that belonging to nature had always been their true destiny. They hadn't left him or rejected his care. They had simply followed the path they were meant to take. And there, standing in front of the mountains that surrounded his farm like protective walls, Robert came to understand something deep and meaningful. Sometimes the most unexpected meetings in life make us guardians and protectors of something far greater and more important than ourselves. "Thank you for letting me be part of your story," he whispered as he watched them disappear into the wilderness where they belonged. "Did you like the story? Would you have set them free as well? Or would you have chosen to keep them?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Remember, the toughest choices often require listening to your heart rather than your emotions. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.